Alright. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Welcome to your Enhancement Talent review for AEW Full Gear. Man, oh man, I have so much to say about this. Just the main event, and by the main event, I mean the technical main event of Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho for the AEW World Championship. This match comes off the back of some great build, some just fantastic storyline work from both guys building into this match. And now, when we get to this match here at the pay-per-view, I thought that it delivered. I don't know if a lot of people feel that way, but I felt like the match with Chris and Cody was at least around what I would have expected from it. And right away, didn't take long for Cody to get some color going. Like, you knew that was going to happen. He takes a nasty bump over the top rope, dive, falling onto the stage, which, they had not the stage, but the ramp, which they had the ramp in the way that it's connected to the ring pretty much. So Cody just tumbles over that thing, lands incredibly awkwardly, just busts himself open, and blades or whatever. But the gash on his head, the landing he had on the ramp there just looked absolutely disgusting. And so the story from after that, and the wound afterwards just looked terrible. The story after that was just Jericho fighting on top, while Cody tries to stay alive to the best he can. And, he has his hope spots here and there, but Jericho is able to really control the pace of the match until it gets into the end where Cody makes his comeback. We start getting into the near falls. There was some interference by Hager at points, eventually getting ejected. Yeah, then we get into the near falls of things, some kickouts. One of the things was when Hager got ejected, Jericho got the AEW title, hit it off Cody's head with the ref not looking. For whatever reason, Jericho just laid down after that. And I don't know why Jericho just laid on the mat for so long until he finally got the cover, but, wrestling. There was a nice disaster kick that landed into a code breaker for a near fall. And then we get to the finish here, because Jericho had already had Cody in the Walls of Jericho at one point in the match, but Cody was able to get out of it. In this case, Jericho gets Cody in a lion tamer, has the contortion on the body, just makes it look... That move always looks so great when you can have it with the right person that will be able to contort their body like that. And, Cody was able to do that here. So, always looks good. But we have MJF, who is in Cody's corner on the outside. And MJF, out of nowhere, has a towel. And he has this moment of confliction. And he finally throws in the towel as Cody is motionless and really in inescapable position. And that calls for the bell. And immediately when I saw that, I could tell that a lot of people were going to hate that. And at this point, I wasn't even thinking that there would be a turn or anything. I just thought that this was going to be the finish and it would build to something later. And even at that point, I thought it was genius because it would slowly build the tension between Cody and MJF. Now, that's not what they did, but at the time, that's what I thought, and that's why I really enjoyed that finish when it happened. And it just caught me off guard. And so afterwards, Jericho, he goes to celebrate, has a little bit of the bubbly with the Inner Circle. And MJF comes in the ring as Cody is starting to get back up. MJF, his performance here was impeccable. Like on his knees, begging. I don't know if it's begging for forgiveness or just apologizing, whatever you want to say. He just felt terrible, seemingly, about what he had just done and the ramifications of what he just did, with this match being, if Cody did not win, then he could not win, that he could not challenge for the AEW World title again. And so knowing the ramifications of that and MJF's performance mixed in together with that, it worked so well. Because what happened next, and Cody walking around in confliction, he has his own moral conflict, but it appears that, he's going to forgive MJF. He's going to, he just taps him on the shoulder. It seems like he's going to be able to forgive MJF for this, but then MJF kicks him with a low blow. What an absolute dick. And that's one of the main things that I liked about this, is that even after what MJF did, he was still going to forgive him, and MJF still turned on him, which was great. And I think turning MJF away from Cody is a good move, because MJF, we want to be the all-and-out heel. He's great at it. There's no reason he shouldn't be. And the one likable thing about MJF has always been his relationship with Cody. So, naturally, you gotta drop that if we're gonna go all the way with this thing. This whole thing was just performed so well by both guys, just really to perfection. Because even though I and many others speculated in the weeks leading up to this that MJF could turn heel, or, well, he's already a heel, but you get what I mean, turn on Cody. When it happened, it still shocked me. Because the way they were playing it out, I thought it was more likely that Cody was going to be the one that beat up on MJF after what happened. So, even though this was, to some extent, what we expected, it's still, the way they merged it all together still made it surprising. And the cherry on top here was when MJF goes up the ramp, and I feel like it was a plant that did this, but, can't be sure. Someone just chucks a drink at MJF, and the camera shot of that just was awesome. I would suspect that was probably a plant, but, you never know, I guess. But definitely the cherry on top there for this whole turn, and now it sets up for what we have next with Cody and MJF. We'll have some sort of feud going from there. Just really enjoy what they did here. It gives Cody, it protects Cody in the loss, clearly, because he didn't really lose. Jericho is still the champion, which I think, if it were up to me, Jericho would just be the champion forever, because Jericho's just on another level right now. And, we can talk about how old he is, and he's too slow, his matches are too slow-paced or whatever. Jericho just gets it. And Jericho is the biggest star that AEW has right now. And they should just hitch their wagon to him and let him continue carrying them, because he stands out so much from everyone else on this show. And just the star appeal that he brings, just the it factor that he has, that no one else is able to do, other than Cody really is the only one that's really done that, which is why this feud has been so enjoyable, is just the build up to this match. And, it was a slower paced match, and I still, the only problem with the slower pace to me is that throughout all of these AEW pay-per-views, there is going to be all sorts of everything before the main event, like Young Bucks matches, private party matches, any assortment of tag matches where they do everything under the sun to each other. But then the main event is when it kind of slows back down. So I get why that can kind of bring people down on it, but I feel like if you isolated this match, it was pretty good. It wasn't a classic or anything, but they told a good story with Cody and the injury early and having to fight back from underneath. And I really enjoyed what they did with MJF throwing in the towel. Just really good stuff. So we'll see what they do going forward with Cody and MJF. I'm definitely really into whatever they're going to do going forward. But with that in mind, we will go back to the top of the show. And just want to shout out the couple people in the live chat. Jesus asks, who is the next AEW champion? That's a good question. As I said, I would like the next champion to be no one, because Chris Jericho should just hold it forever. But if you're going to make me pick someone to take it off, I kind of like Pac, but I don't feel like Pac would be the guy to take it off of Jericho. I would say Moxley, honestly. The match he had tonight, we'll get into it later, but he gets the win there, even though it's technically an unsanctioned match. But Moxley has a story with Chris Jericho, because you go back to the beginning when Moxley debuted, he laid out Chris Jericho. He also laid out Kenny Omega, but it was never really followed up on with Jericho yet. So I feel like there's still something there with him and Jericho. I guess if you did that, you would have the critique of going from one WWE guy to another WWE guy. So I kind of get that. If not Moxley, then I like Hangman Page. He got a big win tonight. You can tell the redemption story for him after losing to Jericho the first time, building up to him eventually getting the win. So Moxley would make sense. I don't know if they'll want to do that, though, right away. Shout out to Alpha Wolf as well in the chat. Says, the whole show was good, in my opinion. Yeah, I thought for the most part, solid show. There were some hits and misses throughout. The lasting image of this show for me is going to be this freaking Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley match I just watched, though. That was just the most insane thing I've ever seen. But we'll get to that all the way at the end. But we start with the buy-in pre-show, which only has one match, even though it's an hour-long pre-show. The other 45 minutes were built in with video packages, which I actually like the way they did the buy-in, because this time they don't have a panel, they don't have anything like WWE does with their pre-shows. They just have, and the good thing is that was original video packages that we haven't seen on television before, so it was a different perspective. Going into the one match on the show, though, and this is one of the misses of this show for me, even though it was just on the pre-show, but whatever. Bea Priestley, and I guess her name is pronounced B and not Bea, so I've been pronouncing that wrong the whole time. Bea Priestley versus Britt Baker. And in the promo package that they play before this match, they built the story around Bea concussing Britt Baker at the Fight for the Fallen pay-per-view show. Or, well, I guess that... I don't think the Fight for the Fallen show was a pay-per-view, but whatever you want to call it. And they built it around Britt Baker having the concussion in that match, which we remember. She got the concussion. I also remember that match for Britt Baker trying to tag in the wrong Japanese girl. But, nonetheless, Britt Baker got concussed in that match. So to build the match around that injury would be fine if they didn't go in the WCW direction of things, which was trying too hard. They're trying too hard to make everything a blurred line storyline where there's a real world aspect to it. Because Britt Baker in this video package says that, B didn't follow the code of honor, she didn't apologize, and in this business we're not trying to hurt each other. Yeah, all that's true, but in the kayfabe world of things, you are trying to hurt each other. If you're in a fight with someone, you're trying to hurt them. Like, I don't get it. I don't get, like, they're working themselves into a shoot, as Hulk Hogan might say. But this was idiotic. I hate that they built this around this. That she didn't follow the code of honor. She didn't apologize. She tried to hurt me. She's unsafe. And screw all that. And even Taz on commentary. Taz was only on commentary for the pre-show. Which, with Tony Schiavone being away for this show, I was expecting Taz might fill in, but I guess he didn't. He was gone by the end of the pre-show. So, yeah. Baker is going to win this match with the lockjaw. There was nothing special about the match. Britt still very green and all that, but nothing really clicked a whole ton for me. It wasn't bad, wasn't great either. But then the interesting thing will come after the match, after Britt Baker leaves, and that is when Awesome Kong and Brandi Rhodes come out with a knife. Yes, a knife. And it didn't go in that direction. There were no murders on this show. Well, I guess we should probably check on Kenny Omega. I don't know that for 100%, so there probably wasn't any murders on this show. But Awesome Kong lays out Priestley, and then is handed the knife by Brandi, the knife, rather, and cuts out a chunk of Priestley's hair, and keeps it as a prize, I guess. We've seen, like, these weird video packages for Brandi and Awesome Kong, who I guess Brandi's just turned into a heel overnight, and what they do with her and Kong going forward, I don't know. The last time we really saw Kong on AEW, they set up something with Awesome Kong and Aja Kong, but I don't know if they couldn't get Aja Kong to come back or what the deal was with that, if plans fell through, but doesn't look like that's the direction they're going in now. So we'll see what they do. Awesome Kong is a welcome addition to this women's division, which absolutely stinks. I don't know what Kong can really do to elevate it at this point in her career, but, at least she's someone that knows what she's doing, and I think can hopefully try to bring the best out of someone at some point, but we'll see. So then the opening match for the main show is the Young Bucks going up against the team now known as Proud and Powerful. Santana and Ortiz, the former LAX. And, this is what you'd expect out of a Young Bucks match for the most part. it was different. It was different from most Young Bucks matches, I guess, in a sense, because once they actually got into the story of the match, where Nick Jackson is going to end up going for a kick on the apron, misses, and hits his shin on the post. And that would set in the story for the rest of the match, where he tries to fight it out, but he has the leg injury. Eventually, it isn't enough, and Santana and Ortiz are able to pick up the win over Nick Jackson. There was also some point in this match where Nick Jackson spit his gum at Ortiz, I'm pretty sure, and Ortiz picked it up off the mat and chewed it, and then spit it back at him. So, that's something. After this, Sammy Guevara comes out to try to do a 3-on-2 beatdown after the match, but the Rock and Roll Express, who were at ringside in the crowd for this one, come in for the save. They were really the best thing about this whole deal. Like especially Ricky with the frickin' dive and the Canadian Destroyer. Just absolutely insane. They were probably the best thing about this. But this was a good opening match. It was just action-filled, as all the Young Bucks matches were, but they eventually settled down and had a good out for the Young Bucks with Nick Jackson and the leg injury. Santana and Ortiz had to get the win there. I think they're probably going to be the next tag team champions at some point whenever they're ready for SCU to drop it. I think it's no question that, even right now, I think Santana and Ortiz logically should be the next challengers in line, right? With the triple threat tonight, SCU still the champions, and then beating the Young Bucks, who are, among the top tag teams. I would assume that Santana and Ortiz go right to the front of the line. Then we got Pac versus Adam Hangman Page. And this was a very fun match. I thought this was maybe the best match on the show. I really enjoyed Pac and Hangman. This match featured a wicked brain buster from Pac to Hangman onto a chair that was set up on the outside. There was a spot that did annoy me, though, and this comes off the back of the last match that Pac had on Dynamite, where he hits the Black Arrow on Trent, gets the cover, 1, 2, yeah. So that kind of happened again, except in this case it was a count-out spot, and it went to 9, and it stayed at 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 9, until Hangman got back in the ring, and then we're all good. The closing sequence of this match was really good. Hangman goes for a Deadeye, but Pac is able to transition it into the Brutalizer in the standing position, the same way he put Omega out at All Out, probably it was. But Hangman is just able to basically collapse into the ropes to break the submission. Pac goes for the Black Arrow, but Page is able to evade it, rolls out of the way, sets up for the buckshot, but Pac is able to grab hold, get out of the way, and ends up getting run into the referee, the same way in their last singles match that Pac gets ran into the referee. He hits the low blow. That's how he gets the win. In this case, that same sequence happens. He tries to hit the mule kick to the balls, but in this case, Adam Page is able to counter out and sets up for the eventually, and after that gets the Deadeye and gets the win. Good stuff. It was definitely better than their first match, which I felt like was kind of underwhelming. They definitely got into some more stuff on this one. Big win for Adam Page. And in my predictions, I predicted Pac to win this one. just because I really thought they were going to try to keep him strong with really the semi-undefeated streak, if you don't count that tag match where he was left 2-on-1. Then, yeah, I thought they were setting up Pac to continue a win streak there, but big win for Page, who definitely really needed it after the earlier loss to Pac and the loss to Jericho at the All Out show for the title. Definitely a big win for Page. He certainly needed this, but I still think there's some work to do with Page. I think he needs a lot more character development. I think I need more reason to care about Page other than cowboy shit. Just really need more depth on that character. Like, if they're able to do something similar like what they were able to do with the Cody and Jericho program this year, or, well, just this last month, really, and just be able to have, like, those sort of video packages that they did for Cody that really helped get him as over as he got as a babyface. Just do that and do as much as you can for everyone. And I think Page is someone who definitely needs that. We had Shawn Spears versus Joey Janela. And this match was fine, but it was nothing really that crazy, as any Joey Janela match that does not involve thumbtacks will. Finish comes with Spears, as the referee is distracted by Tully Blanchard. Spears takes off the turnbuckle pad to once again distract the official, who goes over to set back up the turnbuckle pad. And on the outside of the ring, Tully gets on the steps as he and Spears hit an assisted pile driver as Tully jumps off the steps and hits the pile driver on Janela, get him in the ring, hit him with the Death Valley driver, get the pinfall victory for Spears. This, again, another really much-needed win on this show, and in this case, Shawn Spears just really needed this win after the story they did with Cody, where he just came up short and just really was kind of left for dead at that point. Just really needed a win here. I don't know where they go with Spears going forward. I don't really see him much more than a mid-card guy. And with them not having a mid-card title at this point, it just feels like he is someone that can easily get lost. So we'll see what they do with Spears going forward, but I still don't really have much optimism for him, even though this was a really big win that he desperately needed. I mean, I don't even know if you want to call it a big win, because Janela loses all the time anyway. So I don't know if it's really that big a deal, but it was a win against an established person. Alright, SCU versus Lucha Bros versus Private Party. And shout out to Jason in the chat, who says, spoiler title on the same night. My dude, if you don't want to get spoiled, you don't open YouTube, bro. Sorry. I hate that the Lucha Bros enter with these damn silver medals. Like, I ranted about this on Wednesday. Like, the silver medal, the bronze medal, why should they be happy about losing? Especially for Private Party's sake, for carrying the bronze medals. Like, screw all that. I don't need any participation trophies in wrestling. Match was fine. Didn't really feel like it went as long as I thought it would, and it never really went into the gear, the next gear that I thought it would. But, you know, it was still fine. Just didn't really get above a certain level. SCU win, which I figured they would. They end up pinning Isaiah Cassidy of Private Party. So, Mark Quinn is the star in Private Party for me. He's the one that does all of the good stuff that they do. Everything he does looks good. And I think at some point he can be a singles guy. But right now, Private Party's probably my favorite team. But I don't mind them taking the loss here because after SCU already beat the Lucha Bros once, they didn't need to pin them again. So this was fine. Lucha Bros attack SCU after the match, and they do the old lights go out. And who's it going to be that appears randomly in the ring? And it is someone who is dressed as Pentagon. And this time it wasn't Chris Jericho. This person dressed as Pentagon just stares down the real Pentagon, and the real Pentagon is just in utter shock and just doesn't know what to do. It made him look like a right idiot. But the fake Pentagon takes out the real Pentagon and everyone else and reveals himself to be Christopher Daniels, coming back from the storyline injury that they did at the last, or not the, what am I even talking about? The beginning of the tag team tournament. And I've speculated about this before, that helped catapult Scorpio Sky. And I thought when Daniels came back that there could be some sort of jealousy storyline built in there for Daniels against Scorpio. That Scorpio stole Daniels' spot, and even though he wants to feel good for him, there's still some sort of resentment there. And I think they're still going to do that at some point, but I also think that they probably, if this deterred them at all, I wouldn't blame them, but they probably didn't want to do a turn with Daniels being with what the main event was, what they're going to do with MJF. So that makes sense, and I think they can do a slower burn with Christopher Daniels, being that they are the tag team champions right now. Yeah, once the beatdown started, I definitely expected Daniels to make the save, but not exactly as Pentagon Trace. So, I have so little to say about this next match. Emi Sakura versus Riho. My thoughts on Riho have been well documented on this channel. I don't care for her. I don't think any of her offense looks legit. So, what was AEW's counter for that? Well, they decided everything Riho does looks terrible as far as offense. So, Emi Sakura just beat the shit out of Riho for the whole match and lost on a roll-up. Nah, fuck all that. This sucked. I'm sorry. Then after that, we got the Jericho versus Cody match. And then we got the lights out, unsanctioned match, which it's not the main event. It's not a part of the show. It was just on the pay-per-view at the end, and the people in the building still saw it. All the people that bought it on pay-per-view saw it, but it wasn't a part of the show, guys. It really, really wasn't. Yeah. So I can't possibly recap this match. I couldn't even fathom myself to taking notes on this, but if you like the hardcore deathmatch style of wrestling, then here you go. It was on display for the world to see. And, God, what all did they use? There was mouse traps, miles and miles of barbed wire, trash cans, of course, more barbed wire, broken glass. There was exposed, the exposed wood in the ring, which was used for the finish. Then there was more barbed wire, and then there was more barbed wire, and then there was more barbed wire on top of that. just like at the beginning of this match, just like right away when they get into the barbed wire bat and the barbed wire broom, and they're just brushing this stuff against each other's skin, just tearing each other up. They just cut each other to pieces, essentially, for like 45 minutes, it felt like. And the interesting story development, I thought, and, there was very little story of this match. It was just, we're going to beat the shit out of each other by cutting each other as much as we possibly can. But the story element that there was to this match was when the Young Bucks and Adam Page, they come out and Kenny Omega is just incensed and telling them to go get it. Go get the thing. And the Young Bucks, they're trying to reason with Kenny, but he cannot be reasoned with. He has gone off the deep end. And then they finally bring out this whole barbed wire clusterfuck thing, and Moxley suplexes himself and Omega into this barbed wire mess. And after they're pried off of that thing, then Kenny Omega hits a V-trigger through an AEW Full Gear logo, which was sort of like a light thing that was on the stage, and they just go right through the thing. And eventually we got to the finish where Moxley cut all of the canvas off of the ring so he could get rid of that, he could get rid of the padding, and it's just wood. And Moxley ended up getting backdropped onto that, but Kenny Omega went for a Phoenix Splash. He missed. Moxley hit an elevated paradigm shift and finally put away Kenny Omega. And, Moxley winning was the right call, even though it doesn't count, if you want to say that. But this was just such an absolute cluster. Like, I could not believe that this was something that was on pay-per-view. Like, just absolutely crazy. As far as, and someone in the chat said, Charles asks, what's next for Moxley? Which I think is a good question, because I think he is the next challenger for Jericho, personally. I think that there's still a built-in story with Jericho and Moxley going back to when Moxley debuted at the Double or Nothing show and took out Chris Jericho. I think there's still a story to tell there with he and Jericho. And I don't know if we can go right from this to that, because, it'd definitely be a stretch to go from this barbed wire death match to then competing for the world title. But if it's not that, then I don't really know what we do next with Moxley. Like, we could do like a bigger thing with him and Pac, maybe. They had the one match, but there's still some meat on the bone there. Something with Tim and Hangman Page, possibly. I don't really know where else we go with Moxley, though. I think he's going to be going up to the main event to fight Jericho at some point. I don't really know who else could be Jericho's next challenger, really. But that was AEW Full Gear. This was a tired man trying to get through a stream with a lot of uhs and ums, so I apologize. But, thank you guys for joining me in the live chat, even the guy that is super salty about the spoiler title. As if he did not expect to go on YouTube and get a spoiler of a title in the night where there's a pay-per-view. Like look, I've had it happen to me before, but you gotta be smarter than that. You can't go on YouTube if you are trying to avoid spoilers. You just can't. You can't do it. You can't go on YouTube. You can't go on Twitter. Can't do it. You gotta lay low until you're able to watch the show. But nonetheless, and especially like I'm sure there's 1,000 different channels that have similar titles. But it's just mine that pissed this guy off. He even used a middle finger emoji. But nonetheless, if you're watching this live, definitely appreciate you guys in the chat sticking around. If you're watching this on catch up, be sure to leave a like, comment what you thought on the show. I thought this was a pretty solid show. I don't think it was anywhere near as good as Double or Nothing maybe, or even All Out, but it was a solid pay-per-view show. Yeah. Subscribe for more content on AEW and WWE shows and pay-per-views. And until we see each other again, which will be Monday for Raw, thank you for watching.